Right now, Bitcoin is sitting right on the 21-week moving average, and the 21-week and 50-week moving averages are the two places that every single time Bitcoin has gone down to in the past 2 years, it has been quite literally the best time to buy Bitcoin and as well altcoins at their respective prices before upside moves. And as you can see on my screen, even right here, the latest example of this back the 50-week at the end of March. And then we even almost came down to the 21-week again back in early June. But now, as you can see, we've had a red candle come down to the green 21-week moving average, and now we have a green candle sitting right on the 21-week moving average. So I'm going to be talking about that specifically as well, altcoins, and why I think this is potentially the biggest thing we've ever seen. And I don't say that lightly, and I also don't say that often. And before we jump into the rest of the video, there is now a Bitcoin Vault option if you sign up with the link to Femex below. Basically, you auto earn interest. There's no subscription needed. You can still trade. How it works, you just put your Bitcoin in the account and you earn every week. You don't lock it, which is the key here. You don't lock it up. You can trade, transfer, withdraw whenever you want. So one of the major things happening is that in just about 2 weeks, there is over a 90% probability that the Fed is going to cut rates. This is something that I think the market is trying to now start pricing in. I think it's likely that we're going to see Bitcoin, Ethereum lead, and then the rest of the altcoin market start absolutely blasting upside, massive moves, pumpy, mega pumpy, and dare I say, extremely big pumpy once this happens. Now we have, as we all know, September historically is not a very bullish month, but I think that we're in store for something a lot more surprising than I think people realize. And conversely, October and November are very pumpy months. So even though September historically over the past decade are not really great months for crypto, the next 2 months, October and November, are. What if we have a little bit of a flip-flop? Maybe September is insanely bullish instead. Maybe October and November are not bullish, or potentially they're mega bullish as well. This as well is a good point. I think Ethereum will drop to its 21-week EMA within the next 4 to 6 weeks. Currently, Ethereum is sitting right at all-time highs. Where is the 21-week EMA, you might be asking? Right down here at about 3,400. So that's a pretty bold call, considering the 21-week would bring Ethereum all the way back down to underneath 3,500 USD. One, if that happened, I don't have a strong opinion on if that's going to happen, according to this post. But if that happened, I would be scooping up as much as I can, because actually I want to talk about something in a minute or two in regards to what I think is possible in terms of price for this entire market that might be a little surprising, at least compared to what I usually say. But a drop down to about 3,500, maybe a little below that, would be around the 21-week moving average. You might be looking at that thinking maybe that's bearish, or that is a little low. Maybe a 37 or so, a final retest of this, as we've broken above this range here. This was our resistance for the past couple of years. Say we come down to right about here-ish, or right about here-ish, and then lift off, I think is a realistic possibility. But let's read the rest of this. After Ethereum hits the 21-week moving average, it should then rally to new all-time highs. So basically what he's saying actually is that he believes that that is likely the very last good entry before Ethereum hits all-time highs. And then what's likely to happen after that? Well, when Ethereum starts blasting, as it already actually did hit a new all-time high recently, but once it actually goes well above $5,000 per ETH, that's the beginning, the biggest signal we've ever had in these last 3 years of the beginning of a true alt season, a rotation of capital into altcoins. And what he says here is he thinks we're about to witness the final rotation into Bitcoin of this market cycle. So what does that mean? Maybe a big pump of Bitcoin coming up soon. We see Bitcoin dominance still. There's about pretty much a fresh bi-weekly candle that has just started in green, but we've had 4 weeks of red on Bitcoin dominance. Bitcoin could have a bounce here. That would actually go well with maybe a fresh or a final big rotation into Bitcoin before ETH really starts popping off, considering ETH, again, is sitting right at all-time highs. It did slightly break above all-time highs, but then it caught a little bit of a rejection. And the entire altcoin market as well, keep in mind, if we look here, the entire altcoin market is also sitting right there, ready to explode. I am extremely confident that altcoins are going to see massive gains in the next 1 to 2 months. And when I say massive, I'm talking about putting on the possibility of putting on $1 trillion in the entire altcoin market in a very short window. Really, if we think about it, $1 trillion would only look like a pump for the entire altcoin market, would really only look something like about this. Okay, so that's not even, it looks kind of small, this arrow, but that's $1 trillion of valuation in the entire altcoin market. I think we're beginning to see the beginning of true altcoin explosiveness. We also see there is weekly hidden bullish divergence forming for Bitcoin. Closed the week green, and CryptoGel on X says it locks in. You can see the RSI, and you see Bitcoin. Yes, I personally think Bitcoin could be having a massive move actually up here. But again, I want to talk about something else that I'm watching specifically, and I think maybe people aren't expecting as much. But as well, I think we are in a bull pennant, a bull flag, a bull wedge, whatever you want to call it, bullish wedge. And I think ultimately the next major move for Bitcoin and Ethereum are going to be to the upside. Yes, we can have 5% down days. I don't think that matters whatsoever. And in fact, I'm prepared for that. I've actually been the last 5, 6, 7 days of my income, I have actually not been putting it into the market. The last about week of income that I earn, I have actually not, which I usually just kind of like dump it straight into the market the second I get it, right? Every time I have new income, basically, it's immediately put into Bitcoin or 1 or 2 alts that I might be looking at. But for the past week, I've actually been holding off. And as we see, every cycle plays out the same for Ethereum. This time will not be different. Breakout coming for ETH. I think ETH is very clear. I don't think I have to make a strong case for why Ethereum looks really bullish here. But as well, Crypto Mustache El Crypto Professor on X says it's not a question of if, but when altcoins really take off. We have had to be extremely patient this cycle so far. But the most exciting time is about to begin. And yes, ETH has already taken that first step, baby steps, and that's coming. Now, one of the things I keep mentioning is, if we look at Bitcoin on the daily chart, clearly we're below the 21 and 50-day moving averages. So we've lost that. As of about 2 weeks ago, this isn't new. This is something that's been going on for a couple of weeks. We've been below here. But on the weekly chart for Bitcoin, as I pointed out at the beginning, the 21-week moving average is honestly probably most likely like the best entry that we could be getting in the next few weeks. But I'm absolutely not ruling out that there could be a quick slip and slide below that. We have not gotten it yet. I just think that there's a realistic chance we actually get a quicker move down. Again, most likely just going to be a wick, so it's not going to be something that will sit there for a while. And this is just my own opinion, because I think usually, and based on how I've experienced this market run, a lot of the times before the really big definitive moves, meaning like we go up and it's not just a little fake out where like 2 days later we go down, meaning like we go up and then a week later we're higher and a week later we're higher, meaning like it's an actual breakout. Very often before the actual breakouts, there are fake outs. There is trap liquidity in trades on both long and short positions, but specifically on long positions that get liquidated before the real actual move up. So I'm just very conscious of that. I'm watching for that. As we pointed out here, it's very likely we're going to be getting this rate cut in like 2 weeks. It's very likely after Jerome Powell's speech at Jackson's Hole was a lot more dovish than it could have been. I think it's very likely that we are going to see Bitcoin do really well in the short term. But if we drop for 2 or 3 days, or maybe it's all in a single daily candle, maybe 1, 2, 3 days to fully recover, maybe what if we had a flash crash back to 100 or 90? I don't think it's the most likely scenario, but I'm just very prepared for that, considering I think that when you look at this chart, what I'm thinking, my initial reaction is, wow, we're right on the 21 week. We've come down to it before. If we come down to the 21 week or 50 week, that's where the bounce is going to be. And so far, this does look very good. I think we have a lot of things set up where that is likely to be the bottom. But I mean, look at all these other times. If I zoom out, we've actually seen over the past couple of years, when Bitcoin comes down to this 21 week in green, let me actually zoom out a little more. The 21 week in green here, you can see right here, it actually kind of slipped below it. And then it did end up going up. But then again, a couple weeks later, I think we're in a different environment now, so I don't think it's going to be like this type thing. But just very often when we come down to this 21 week, it can slightly go below it a little bit. This time specifically, we ended up bouncing at the 50. This one again, we were at the 21, fell below it, bounced at the 50. This one we didn't quite come down to the 21 week here. Most recently, back in June, we did not. We bounced before we even got there. But now we're sitting right on the 21 week. So until we get a strong bounce above the 21 week, specifically until we get back about 114,000, 115,000, and get back above the 21 and 50-day moving averages, that gives me a lot more confidence in the short term. But considering we're still below the shorter term moving averages, the 21 and 50, I'm just a little hesitant that like, okay, this is the breakout until we get back above these on the shorter time frame. So this is the daily chart. This is a weekly. The weekly looks really good, right? You can't deny that. It looks good. We're sitting right on the 21 week. We had a candle close exactly on it. Now we're having a candle that's open exactly on it, and it's green. But you could wake up tomorrow and let's say the price is right here sitting right on the 21 day, and then 2 days later we get one of these moves, and then a week after that we're like up at here again, meaning like during this time people are going to be crying and panicking thinking like, oh, I can't believe this happened. It actually is the beginning of a bear market, and then we actually just pop back up, and then next thing you know we're at all-time highs. Because just a couple of days ago, keep in mind, try to remember this, on Friday the market had a little bit of a down move. Let me actually go to, Friday, look at this. It went from 112 to 107,000 US dollars. I was actually on an airplane, and I got off the airplane and I was reading tweets. Do you know how many tweets I saw of people just thinking like, oh my gosh, it's over. This really is the beginning of a bear market. I should have sold. Actually, I did read like a big account actually tweet something like, guys, I'm officially out of the market. I know I've been, saying we're going to be in a bull run for the past 2 years, but I've made some money and I'm out, right? This is from an account with 6-digit followers that has also been posting like very bullish things month after month after month, and they're panicking. This isn't Jimmy and Johnny with 2 followers on Twitter that just got into crypto last month. This is a guy who you would think would be knowledgeable and not emotional in these markets. These people that you think, okay, I'm assuming, this person with 6-digit followers that's been in the market for years, that talks about how to not be overly emotional, whatever, you trust that they actually might know what they're doing. But even people like that panic, and even people like that fail. And that's just the reality of this market, is it doesn't really matter if you have the credentials. If you're not emotionally resilient, you can crack just like everyone else, even if you're a big account posting bullish things all the time. So I thought that was funny to see. My initial reaction was like, wow, what a big baby. He's literally giving up on what he believed in for the past 2 years just because we went down 2% in a day. I just thought it was dumb. But here we are a couple days later, and the price looks completely fine. As I've been saying, I would not even consider this anywhere near bearish until we go down to the 50-week moving average and go below that. That's at $95,000. Right now it's $110,000. So we would need to lose about a $15,000 price. $15,000 would have to get shaved off of Bitcoin before I would even consider that this could be like a bearish switch into a bear market. So keep that in mind. Even though now we currently are 10%, 12%. Actually, no, we're about 11% off of all-time highs. 11%, you're going to start crying because we're 11% from all-time highs, when routinely 25, 30, 35% drawdowns in bull markets are normal, and you're crying at an 11% drawdown. I'm sorry, but if you have an account with 6-digit followers and you've been in the market for years and you panic because Bitcoin's down 12%, you're not very good at this. Not saying that I'm amazing at it and everyone else is bad, but if you're really panicking on 11 or 12%, bro, that's you just outed yourself as a big baby, to be honest. Sorry for the harsh words, but it's 12%, dude. Have you not experienced the market before? Nothing unusual has happened. And in fact, very big things are right around the corner. Specifically this month, as I've started September, this might be a little bit more of a chaotic month. That's why I'm open to the possibility of actually seeing us go a little bit lower here. But as well, it's also possible we don't. Now, the entire stock market today, the S&P is down 1.2%, NASDAQ is down 1.6%, Dow Jones is down 1%, and Bitcoin, might get tied up with that in the next day or two, considering they're actually having a little bit of a drawdown. Why is Bitcoin up today and stocks are not? Hey, also, the US dollar is having a tiny, tiny, tiny move. US dollar is, in my opinion, as I've said a million times, not actually going to, not in a good place. It's not going to be pumping anytime soon. It's been down for the past 6 months, or sorry, actually the entire year so far, the past 9 months since Trump took office, as expected. But honestly, yeah, I mean, everything looks fine. The fact that the stock market is down a little bit today also makes me a little cautious that we might actually see a drawdown quickly, where it might catch a lot of people off guard. So rationally, I think that it's very smart right now to be expectant of a potential drawdown below the 21 week. As I said, I think a lot of people are looking at the 21 week thinking, okay, this is the bounce, time to get in. Wouldn't it be a shame if this was a fake out and actually we went a little bit lower and then maybe by next week we were higher? But before we do that, let's say we have a little shakeout. That's just something I'm very cautious of right now, right? And for ETH to have that drawdown, ETH would have to shave off the one I mentioned here. ETH would have to shave off, what, $800 off of its price, roughly, something like that. I mean, right now the price is right about here. Yeah, you have to shave off $900. That's a pretty big, that's a decent drawdown. So what, another 20% drop on ETH if that were to actually happen? Ultimately, yeah, I mean, that's mainly what I'm looking at. Maybe one final drawdown, but ultimately all of these charts are primed. The entire altcoin market, Ethereum's chart specifically, Bitcoin as well looks fantastic. But I'm just watching because I think it is necessary right now to be a little cautious. Hey, maybe we will get a drawdown in the next day or two, this next couple days, before the FOMC or before the rate cuts come through. Assuming they do, there's over a 90% chance they do happen. But assuming that we get them, these next 2 weeks until we get them might be kind of volatile. They might bring some dumpiness. Maybe a week before or a couple days before the rate cut, maybe the market will start shifting up more positively, but maybe up until then, we go a little bit lower than people expect and people lose faith. We see how quickly people lose faith. As I tried to point out, when on Friday, Bitcoin was down just a couple of percent, people started panicking, thinking, oh, this whole thing's over. It doesn't take much for new people and inexperienced people and emotional people to lose faith, to lose focus, to lose track of what their plan is, right? People who lose track, that's the thing. Like, it doesn't matter how many college courses you take, how many years you spend in business, whatever. If you don't have control over your emotion and you can't stick to a plan, you're not going to be as successful as somebody that does stick to their plan. Or if you just stuck to your plan. You would be more successful if you have a plan that you think and you do not let emotions shake you out of your plan. Time and time again. But I would say over 90% of people can't do that. And that's why 90% of people plus can't really truly be successful in this market, is because they cannot stick to their plan, because they get scared every time a little red candle, 2, 3, 4% candle shows up. That's not how you succeed. Stick to your plan. Don't be emotional. Be hardened. Have a strong resolve. And my biggest advice is don't be a big baby. And get signed up with Femex or BITUNIX below if not Bitcoin, altcoins, or trade. Without any further ado,